Blair went to NATO's headquarters in Brussels today and described the campaign against the Serbs in terms of a modern-day crusade. A just war in a just cause, he called it, a fight for civilization itself. NATO has produced a list of atrocities it says the Serbs have committed, including thousands of executions and mass rape. Brian Hanrahan on the war, the Prime Minister and the moral high ground.
At the end of a bruising week for NATO, the Prime Minister firmly associated himself with his fighting men. He visited RAF Bruggen in Germany, from where tornado bombers are flying most nights to Serbia. He was shown a bombed-up aircraft and said he wanted to express his thanks at the work being done in support of NATO.
They're risking their lives. We're very conscious of that. But I believe that they are risking their lives in a cause that is just and right.
He also went to the war room at NATO headquarters in Brussels for a video conference of the campaign commanders. Mr. Blair is putting his full moral weight behind them in a way that virtually rules out any idea of compromise or negotiation. He spoke later in terms of a war that needed to be won and said people should be morally outraged at what was happening in Kosovo.
People driven from their homes at the point of a gun. Women raped. Young men taken out and murdered. A whole people displaced and dispossessed simply because of their ethnic identity. My generation never thought to see those scenes in Europe again.
In a series of briefings in Brussels, London and Washington, NATO has set out what it believes is happening inside Kosovo. It says that 1 million people are now on the move, forced from their homes and being herded backwards and forwards. But it says the men are missing. 100,000 men of military age cannot be accounted for. And NATO says it has monitored mass executions in which 3,000 people have died. And NATO reports many allegations of organized rape.
Refugees allege that in Peć, Serb forces have rounded up young Albanian women and taken them to the hotel Karagak, where the local commander apparently has organized a roster of his soldiers to allow them all an evening at the hotel. And in addition to these specific accounts, numerous refugees claim that during Serb raids in their villages, young women have been gang raped in the homes or on the roadside by Serb soldiers.
And the language today leaned closer to committing ground troops to Kosovo without Serb agreement. Until now, all troops, like these American paratroopers, have other missions. But now Mr. Blair says they are there to return the Albanians to their homes. And Milosevic won't be allowed a veto on what NATO does.
NATO has tried to deflect some of the flack it's received over what it's been prepared to say about the attacks on convoys of refugees in Kosovo last week. It's given its fullest account yet of what actually happened, releasing video footage of what the pilots saw, saying that 2 targets were hit and that civilians may have been killed on both occasions. Tony Blair's in Brussels today, and he's warned Slobodan Milosevic that he'll be made to withdraw from Kosovo and that the province will return to its rightful owners. Well, we'll be looking at NATO's strategy in a moment. But first, our own Foreign Affairs correspondent, Mike Williams, is on the line from Belgrade. Mike, that tragic killing of the civilians in the convoy last week, does the new account of what happened fit in with what you saw on the ground there?
It was remarkable, actually, watching the videos from NATO. In the past, we've all seen these blurred black and white images of the laser-guided bombs hitting their target. And it's never before actually had the reality. I've never understood exactly what it was that was being hit. When you've spent a bit of time there and got some idea of the scale, see the bends in the road, the features on the ground, the railway embankment that was there, and the places that the vehicles landed up after the blast, then to see that happen effectively in real time through the NATO video, it all becomes very, very much clearer to me what happened. I think it is fair to say that having seen that and spoken to the other reporters who were down there, they now believe undoubtedly that NATO hit a number of tractors, the tractors that we could see and identify down there, and then saw again yesterday while they were being hit by the NATO bombs.
You said you were taken to, I think, 4 different sites altogether. NATO is talking about 2 attacks. How does that all square up?
What I did was visited 3 sites out of 4. There were 2 attacks, one in a single location, and then a further 3 attacks along the road from Prizren to Jakovica, hitting the same convoy of, we're told, 100 vehicles and perhaps 1,000 people. There were, in effect, numerous attacks at 2 separate sites.
And I'm joined in the studio by the defence analyst Colonel Andrew Duncan, and from the radio car by Donald Anderson, the Labour chairman of the Commons Foreign Affairs Select Committee. Colonel Duncan, you will have seen that rather fuzzy black and white video, the new video footage released yesterday. Do you think now NATO has managed to draw a line under what's been a rather messy business for it?
I think they've at last come clean on what happened, and it's very sad that they didn't do so in the first instance. I mean, we learned in the British Army in Northern Ireland many years ago that you must tell the media the truth, otherwise you're bound to be caught out and you'll always look extremely foolish.
Now, we're told, and we know Alistair Campbell, Tony Blair's press man, has been sort of parachuted into this to advise. Is that a good strategy, do you think, to get a professional from outside in?
Well, it depends what he's a professional in. I thought he was a professional spin doctor, and Jamie O'Shea seemed to have been a bit of a spin doctor in the last few days, so I would have thought he was going to make the policy worse rather than more open.
Because Donald Anderson, how the public perceive the war is to quite a large extent, isn't it, dictated by these NATO press conferences and of course by the spin put on them by the press. Do you think we've reached a turning point here?
Well, I think it's very clear that NATO propaganda has been very badly handled. You remember the incident was last Wednesday. It's only this Monday that NATO has made a very serious effort to say what actually happened.